We have now reached the moment of interruption. Subject for tonight's late debate was submitted by the member for Kings West, and therefore be resolved that with today's announcement of last year's surplus, the NDP government explained to the people of Yarmouth and southwestern Nova Scotia why they couldn't provide the needed $3 million to sustain the Yarmouth to New England ferry for one more year, keep this economic driver alive, and help people and business coming into the province. I recognize the member for Yarmouth.
Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is truly an honour to stand in my place and talk about this important issue, the Yarmouth Ferry issue. It's an issue that I hear about every day in my constituency. I will respond to the minister's comments earlier in question period about collaboration and working together in respect. And I want to assure the minister that I am a member who, despite my critiques of some decisions that this government has made, will always be a member, as the member from Pictou East knows, who is willing to collaborate with all members of this House when it comes to doing good things for Nova Scotians. But, Mr. Speaker, I will tell you that if the minister keeps it up the way he's acting in question period, he'll be pushing it. No, but this is a very important issue for my constituency in Yarmouth, as you well know. And I think it's important to review the facts of what's happened here, Mr. Speaker. In 2009, Yarmouth was hit with a decision that this government would be stopping subsidy to our ferry link immediately, effective immediately. That original investment would have costed this province $9 million, but if you look at the numbers, it actually would have been $3 million to keep that ferry service going for one more year. And that's all that the community wanted, was to have one more year with the CAT so that we could transition and get a new service in place while maintaining that essential economic sea link to the United States, our greatest trading partner and international friend. $9 million it would have cost in the original subsidy. $3 million of that, Mr. Speaker, if you review the math, the government would have to pay anyway to cancel the contract. So you're looking at $6 million. The municipalities came up with half of that, Mr. Speaker, half of that. They came up with $3 million. They went back to the Premier and said, we'll provide this $3 million if you match it. It would have costed this government $3 million to ensure that that service was existing for one more year in Yarmouth. And that wasn't even...
We could have it a little quieter for late debate. It's a very important topic before the House. I recognize the member for Yarmouth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, $3 million to ensure that that economic engine in southwest Nova Scotia would be going for another year. $3 million to ensure that those 100 years that as a province we educated people, our American friends on the U.S. side of the border, for 100 years we educated them to come through Yarmouth. It would have costed $3 million to keep that going. Instead, we've thrown that away. In 2 years, we've thrown those 100 years of education away. We've told people in the last 2 years, you know what? You don't come through Yarmouth anymore. You drive all around if you come at all the way around if you come at all. And, you know, Mr. Speaker, I've seen firsthand the consequences in my constituency because of that decision. 300 people, according to the municipality of Yarmouth, the town of Yarmouth, lost their jobs as a direct result of that ferry. 300 people. Businesses have been closing. It's no joke. It's actually happening. I hear on the government side that I don't know the full story. I don't know the full story that dictated their decision. That's true because they haven't brought any of that information to the House to debate. They haven't presented any information, any evidence to support that decision, so I might not know the whole story. But I do know the story and the many stories of my constituents, Mr. Speaker, who are struggling right now, who are worried right now. The story of Bill Curry, who had a tourism operation for 100 years, Mr. Speaker, a family company that existed for 100 years, this past year closed. They shut down after 100 years. 100-year family tradition shut down because of that decision. I know that the 20 people that are out of work now at the mothballed Colony Inn, Yarmouth's second largest hotel, I know their story. They're out of work. wondering what they're going to do in Yarmouth. You know, Captain Kelly's, a long-standing restaurant in Yarmouth, shut their doors, another 20 people out of work. The list goes on of the businesses that have been affected by this. It's not just tourism. You know, the tourism operators have been hurt the most by this decision. Of course they're going to be hurt when you cut off 75,000 people coming through your community a year. That's going to hurt. But it's the economic spin-offs that have really impacted the area. And they've had such an impact. I think the worst impact it's had is on the psyche and morale of that community. Many people in that community are concerned. They feel hopeless. They don't feel that they have the partner they should have in government, a partner that during hard, difficult times stands with them and helps move them forward.
Not giving up.
You know, they feel that they've had a government that has actually set them back. And I think that's true. I know that the members of the government will stand up and boast about tourism numbers being up for this past year, 3% or something like that. You know, I think those numbers are inflated because of the cruise ships that come into Halifax Harbour that don't stay overnight, that don't fill the rooms. And I also think they're inflated because I believe that the tourism department is counting every single person that comes in and out of the province as a tourist, whether it's the Premier, myself, any Nova Scotian. My family members that leave and come back, I think they're being included in that as well. Because if you look at the room accommodation numbers and tourism numbers for Southwest Nova, they are down. Yarmouth and Acadian Shores, down, and I'll table that, Mr. Speaker. Occupancy rates down in Yarmouth and Acadian Shores, and visitations from New England down. These are the facts. These are from the department. These numbers are down, and the situation is so dire that churches in Yarmouth have started to voice their concerns about what's going on. The Protestant Ministerial, representing Protestant churches from across the county of Yarmouth, sent a letter to the Premier letting him know of the urgency of the situation in Yarmouth, letting him know that people are struggling, that their numbers of clients that come in looking for help because they don't have money, they don't know what to do, have increased. And the Catholics followed suit, Mr. Speaker, sending a letter of their own because their services for the community are being used a lot more than before. And those church groups have associated that increase in need in our community to the loss of the ferry service. That's happened. Everybody associates it with that. And yeah, God's involved now. Yeah, the NDP have brought God into the whole thing. Who knows what's going to happen now? But Mr. Speaker, you know, you hear that things are fine and everything's dandy, but you don't hear from this government the stories of all the people that have been affected by this. And, you know, to hear the throne speech this past week mention Yarmouth, you know, I appreciated that, and Yarmouth's 250th celebrations. You know, this government continually mentions the $400,000 they put into their Explore Our Shores campaign and talk about how much support they're providing for West Nova and Yarmouth. And there has been some monies come in, you know, $150,000, I believe, for the 250th anniversary, $400,000 for Explore Our Shores campaign. But if you look at the results that those investments are bringing about, there isn't any. Occupancy rates have still gone down, businesses have still closed, and there's been no indication from anybody in the tourism industry that these investments are doing something to improve their situation. And the reason they're not is because we've cut off a sea link to one of the biggest markets in the world, in New England. One of the biggest markets in the world. We looked at that, the government looked at that and said, you know, we don't need that. We don't need to connect ourselves to our greatest international partner and friend, the U.S. We don't need to have that direct sea link with the closest port in Nova Scotia to the closest port in New England. We don't need to have that. There's no business case for it, is what they said. But then we learn afterwards, after the fact, from the Chambers of Commerce from southwestern Nova Scotia, that there is in fact a business case for this. According to them, this is the only cost-benefit analysis that has been done and that has been presented to this House. A $6 million annual investment in the Yarmouth Ferry would have yielded over $22 million in profits for Nova Scotians leading up to 2015. $22 million in profits that have been lost because of that one decision. And we feel it most distinctly in Yarmouth. You know, I was told, you know, I'm told that I don't, you know, this isn't necessarily the case, and that I might not know all my facts, and that, you know, as a government, they did their homework. But Mr. Speaker, I look across the benches opposite, and I see a lot of teachers, and they know that your homework's only good if you bring it to class. Your homework's only good if you bring it to class and share it with everybody else.
That's right.
You know, no one has been given any indication why this decision was made, which leads me to think it was a political decision, not one based on business, not one based on any cost-benefit analysis by looking at the spin-offs in the economy by having that sea-link, and definitely not one that considered the interests of our tourism operators and small business owners who needed the business from that vessel. I've talked with tourism operators, of course, across Yarmouth. We've consulted with them numerous times. I've talked to them in Queens County, in Shelburne, in Hubbards. They're all saying the same thing. We've been hurt by this decision.
Order.
That was quick.
The Speaker of the Nova Scotia House of Assembly grants permission to record the televised proceedings of the legislature for use in schools and for other purposes, such as private study, research, review, or newspaper summary. Television and radio broadcasters may make use of recorded excerpts of the televised proceedings in their news or public affairs programs for the purposes of fair and accurate reports of proceedings. Program material may not be used for political party advertising, election campaigns, or any other politically partisan activity. Any other commercial use or rebroadcast of these televised proceedings requires the express written approval of the Speaker.